In this video here, I'll show you a couple different things. Just adjusting your font in a few different ways, and also how to take it into Photoshop and add some text or some texture. Okay, so here's a title. I called it gritty title because I want to add some grit, so I'm going to later add some texture in Photoshop. But first, what if you want to edit the shapes of these at all? So first, I type this out and I want to convert this to a shape. So I go to Type, Create Outlines. So now these are just basically shapes here. I can change the color of this the same way I would any sort of shape in Illustrator. Okay. But what's bugging me about this one right here is this little part of the G that's hanging down. I like this font pretty much for the rest of it, but this little thing I don't really think is working that well. So luckily, once I created it into a, once I created outlines, I changed into a shape. I can go in now and edit this. So what I want to do is switch to my direct selection tool. I'm just going to start deleting these anchor points and move this one up till it is even with the other ones. Okay, so there we go. So now that is re-edited. I could go in and move any of these anchor points and adjust the font to try and get better readability. Adjust the shapes at all if I wanted to. So that's what's nice about converting those, converting a font to a shape, because then you can edit it the way you would any shape there. So maybe we can change the color of this one. We got two different colors there. A little contrast. All right. So now I want to add some texture to this. So I find it easier to do this in Photoshop. So I'm going to take this, export it, and then edit it in Photoshop. So File, Export, Export As. Any of these should work. The PNG works. We've discussed that before because it has a transparent background. JPEG is pretty good as well. So I'll just do JPEG. You want to check Use Artboards. Anytime you export, make sure it is a high resolution. Okay, it's going to be easier to work with. CMYK or RGB should work, but RGB will work better for the internet. So I'll do that. Here it is. So there is my new thing. So I want to open this in Photoshop. I'll go ahead and recrop this. Actually, I'll leave a little bit here to show you some examples. So hopefully people know about all the different brushes. So when I switch to my brush tool, I can expand it here. And there are a whole bunch of different brushes. A bunch of these I have downloaded, so you can download. There's a bunch of free brush downloads. You can say free texture brushes in Google and probably get a whole bunch of different ones. I'm trying to see. There are some basic ones that come with Photoshop as well. That should have some texture options in there. I'm not sure which ones of mine came with Photoshop because I have so many different ones in here. But anything that looks kind of like this, so where you can see that texture in the stroke, because this is all examples of the stroke here. So let's try this one. You can edit the shape of your brush too here by dragging that a little bit. Alright, so when you switch to your brush, the main thing to adjust here is the flow and opacity, but opacity will kind of be the number one thing. So I'll just do a few example strokes down here. So you can see this has a nice texture to it and it builds up. If the opacity was not down all the way, that would start off way darker. I'm drawing with a tablet here, but you can also do this with your mouse. But it doesn't have quite the same effect when working with the mouse. Some of them should show up that texture better even if it's with a mouse. Let's see, is there any other good ones? Here we go. So something like this. So this is just with my mouse, and that can get some texture on there. So basically, I want to apply some of this texture just to give a little texture there on my title. So I'm going to select the blue here with my magic wand tool right here, and click there, and it selected all the blue. Double check this box here. If this is checked, then it will just select one section of that blue at a time. Either way, you can get it all selected. And what I want to do is then I will suck up this blue with my eyedropper tool. So that is holding Option or Alt on PC. Click that, and I want to make either just a little bit lighter or just a little darker, just to apply some texture here. I'm going to make it a little brighter so you can see it. There we go. And then deselect is Command D or Control D. Now I will switch back to my magic wand tool and do the same thing with the lighter blue here. So especially if this is matching the sort of mood imagery that you want to get in your album cover or any of the projects in the future, this can be a good way to do it. Just don't overdo it too much where it affects the readability of your font. Okay, so that can be a good way to add that in. And you can use these texture brushes in different places. And remember, you can contrast smooth areas with textured areas. So maybe I wanted to keep the font clean. Let's just open a different version of this. Title texture, save this one. Let's open this one back up. So I also could have done it and kept the, you don't want to put texture everywhere. So I could have made a flat color here for the background, or I could have left the text smooth and then put a gritty texture or a texture over the entire background as a way to contrast that. So that can be a type of contrast. So just using that brush and going over the whole background, but then leaving the title smooth and flat there. Another option for you to use as a possibility on your album cover.